The school called me on a random Tuesday afternoon and said my daughter had been waiting for over 3 hours to be picked up. The problem? I don't have a daughter. I laughed at first. I told the woman on the phone, "Ma'am, you have the wrong number. I'm single. I've never been married. I don't even have a goldfish." But her voice didn't change. She didn't apologize. She just went silent for a second, and then she said something that sent a chill down my spine. She said, "Sir, your name is on the emergency contact form. You are listed as the father." And then she said they were legally required to call Child Protective Services if I didn't come down to the school immediately. I thought it was a scam, a prank. Maybe someone stole my identity. But when I asked for the child's name, my blood ran cold, because the little girl they were holding for me had my last name.
Let me rewind a little so you understand why this broke my brain. My name is Jake. I'm 32 years old. I live in a modest 2-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood in Austin, Texas. I work as a project manager for a construction firm. My life is boring, and I mean that as a compliment. My routine is the same every day. Coffee at 6 a.m., gym at 6:30, work by 8 o'clock, home by 6 o'clock, frozen dinner, Netflix, bed, no wild parties in my 20s, no secret girlfriends, no crazy exes that would try to pull a prank like this. My last serious relationship ended 4 years ago because she wanted kids, and I told her I wasn't ready. We parted on good terms. That was it. So when the school secretary told me to come to Westbrook Elementary, I assumed it was a glitch, a computer error. I drove over just to clear my name and go home. I was not prepared for what walked out of that office. The drive to the school took 20 minutes. In those 20 minutes, I tried to rationalize everything. I told myself, it's a paperwork error, some other guy with my name. But then the details started to bother me. The secretary said the emergency contact was my specific cell phone number. My work number was listed too. And my address. My exact address. How does a computer error get that specific? I pulled into the parking lot and noticed the sky was getting dark. It was one of those gray Texas afternoons where the air feels heavy. I walked into the front office, and that's when I noticed the first red flag. The woman at the front desk looked at me like she recognized me. Not like a stranger. Like she had seen my face before. She said, "Mr. Vance? She's been asking for you for 3 hours. She refused to eat her snack because she said you'd be mad if she spoiled her dinner." I remember laughing nervously. I said, "Look, I think there's a mistake. I don't have a daughter." The secretary stopped typing. She looked up at me over her glasses, and she didn't look confused. She looked concerned. For the little girl, she said, "Sir, she knows your birthday. She knows where you work. She has a drawing in her backpack of the two of you standing in front of a blue house with a white fence." I felt the floor drop out from under me. Because I have a blue house with a white fence. I leaned against the counter. My heart was pounding. I told the secretary to bring the girl out. I needed to see her face. The secretary walked to the back room. The door swung open, and that's when everything went silent. She walked out holding the secretary's hand. She was tiny, maybe 6 or 7 years old. Brown hair braided into 2 pigtails. She had on a purple backpack that was way too big for her and little white sneakers that were muddy at the toes. She looked up, scanning the room, and the moment her eyes landed on me, her whole face lit up. Not a fake smile, not a shy look. It was pure, unfiltered relief, like I had just saved her life. She let go of the secretary's hand and ran. She ran straight toward me, her little arms open, her braids bouncing, and she crashed into my legs, hugging me so tight that I almost lost my balance. I looked down. She looked up, and she said, in the sweetest, most heartbreaking voice I have ever heard, "Dad, where were you? You promised you'd come back." My hands started shaking. I couldn't breathe. I looked at the secretary. I looked at the little girl. I wanted to push her away. I wanted to scream that this was a mistake. But I couldn't move, because when I looked into her eyes, I saw something familiar. The shape of her eyebrows. The way she squinted when she smiled. She looked like me. No, that's not right. She looked exactly like her that I finally found my voice. I gently pushed her back by the shoulders and knelt down to her level. I said, "Sweetheart, I think you have the wrong guy. What's your name?" Her smile faded a little, like she thought I was playing a game. She said, "Lily. Lily Vance. You're silly, Daddy. Lily Vance." I stood up so fast I almost fell over. I turned to the secretary and whispered, "This is insane. I have never seen this child in my life. I have never been with a woman who had a child." The secretary picked up a file folder and handed it to me. Inside was the enrollment form, my name, my social security number, my cell phone, and in the section for mother's name. It was a name I hadn't thought about in 10 years. Chloe Masterson, my high school girlfriend, the one I dated when I was 18, right before I left for college. I felt sick. I mean, physically, like I was going to throw up on the linoleum floor. I remembered Chloe. We broke up before I moved to Austin. We were kids. We said goodbye, and I never saw her again. I never got a phone call. I never got a letter. She never told me she was pregnant. I looked back down at Lily. She was just standing there, holding the strap of her backpack, looking up at me with these big, hopeful eyes. And then the secretary said the words that changed everything. "Mr. Vance, Chloe listed you as the father, but she also left a note in the file." She handed me a sticky note. It was crumpled, faded. It said, "If I'm not back by the first week of school, call Jake. He doesn't know. I'm sorry. I read that note about 20 times. He doesn't know. I'm sorry. Chloe kept a child from me. For 7 years. I did the math in my head. We broke up. She must have found out she was pregnant right after I left. And instead of calling me, she vanished." I asked the secretary, "Where's Chloe? Why isn't she here?" The secretary's face went pale. She looked at Lily, then back at me. She pulled me into the hallway. She told me that Chloe had dropped Lily off for the first day of school that morning. She seemed nervous, jittery. She kissed Lily goodbye, said, "Mommy will be right back," and walked out the front gate. That was 8 hours ago. Chloe never came back. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her apartment was empty. The school had called every other emergency contact, grandparents, aunts, and nobody answered. I was the last name on the list. The only name. I walked back into the office. Lily was sitting in a tiny plastic chair, coloring a picture. I knelt down next to her. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Lily, where is your mommy?" She didn't look up from her coloring. She just said, "Mommy had to go on a trip. She said you would take care of me now." My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. This little girl wasn't lying. She wasn't confused. She had been coached. Chloe had planned this. She waited 7 years, and on the first day of school, she handed her daughter to a stranger and disappeared. But here's the part one still can't wrap my head around. How did Chloe know I would come? How did she know I wouldn't just hang up the phone and let CPS take her? And then I looked at the drawing Lily was coloring. It was a stick figure of a man, blue shirt, brown hair, standing next to a little girl. And at the bottom, in wobbly kindergarten handwriting, she had written 3 words. My real dad. I had 2 choices. I could call Child Protective Services myself. Walk away. Say, "Not my problem, not my kid." Legally, I wasn't on the birth certificate. I had no obligation. But looking at Lily, I couldn't do it. She didn't ask for any of this. She was just a little girl who had been abandoned by the one person who was supposed to protect her. So I took a deep breath. I signed the temporary guardianship papers at the school. I took her tiny hand in mine, and I walked her out to my truck. She talked the whole way home. About her favorite color, purple. About her stuffed bunny named Mr. Wiggles. About how Mommy had been sad lately. How Mommy cried a lot, but told Lily it was allergies. I listened to every word. That night, I tucked her into my guest bedroom. I read her a bedtime story, the only book I had, some old novel about boats. She didn't care. She just wanted to hear my voice. After she fell asleep, I sat at my kitchen table at 2 a.m. I started digging. I found Chloe's Facebook profile. It was deleted, but I found old screenshots. I found her mother's phone number in an old contact list. I called it. At first, her mother hung up on me, but I called back. I told her I had Lily. I told her Chloe was gone, and that's when her mother started crying. She said, "Jake, Chloe wasn't going to tell you. Ever. But she got sick. Really sick. And she didn't want Lily to be alone." I asked what she meant by sick, and her mother sent me a photo. It was a medical report. Chloe's name. A diagnosis. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She had less than 6 months to live. And instead of telling me the truth, she left Lily at school, hoping I would figure it out. But here's the twist I never saw coming. When I finally tracked Chloe down at a hospice center 2 towns over, she looked at me with these hollow, yellowed eyes. And she smiled. She said, "I knew you'd come." I asked her why she did this, why she waited 7 years. And she said, "Because I didn't want you to raise her out of pity. I wanted you to choose her." Chloe passed away 3 weeks later. I was holding her hand when she went. I won't lie to you, I was angry. I'm still angry. She robbed me of 7 years of my daughter's life because she was scared and proud. But karma is a strange thing. Chloe thought she was punishing me by keeping Lily a secret. But in the end, she handed me the greatest gift I never knew I wanted. Lily is 8 now. She calls me Dad. She has her own room now, painted purple, with Mr. Wiggles sitting on her pillow. I go to parent-teacher conferences. I make her mac and cheese on Fridays. I braid her hair, badly, but she lets me try. As for Chloe, she didn't get to see any of this. She didn't get to see Lily's first school play. She didn't get to see her lose her first tooth. That is her karma. She spent 7 years running from the truth, and in the end, the truth is what took her. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. When I cleaned out Chloe's apartment, I found a box under her bed. Inside were letters, dozens of them, addressed to me, dated over 7 years. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time Lily said her first word or took her first step, Chloe wrote me a letter, and she never sent a single one. The last letter was dated 2 days before she dropped Lily off at school. It said, "Jake, she is yours. She has always been yours. I'm sorry I was too weak to share her. Please tell her I didn't leave because I didn't love her. I left because I loved her too much to let her watch me die." So that's the story of how I found out I had a daughter. Not through a phone call or a DNA test, but through a disappearance. I never planned to be a father. I never wanted the responsibility. But now, I can't imagine my life without her little hand in mine. Lily doesn't know the full story yet. She just thinks Mommy went to heaven. Someday, when she's older, I'll give her those letters, and she can decide for herself what kind of woman her mother was. But I learned something through all of this. Sometimes, the universe doesn't give you what you ask for. Sometimes, it gives you what you need when you least expect it. And sometimes, a random phone call from a school can change your entire life. But here's the thing that still haunts me. When I was going through Chloe's laptop, I found a search history. She had been watching me for years, through social media, through public records. She knew where I lived. She knew I was single. She knew I was lonely. She didn't just abandon Lily at that school by accident. She chose that school because it was 5 minutes from my house. She planned the entire thing, which makes me wonder, what else did she plan? And that's when I found the second file, the one labeled, "If Jake doesn't show up." And let me tell you what was in that file. It changed everything I thought I knew about Chloe. But I'll save that for another video. In the last video, I told you how I found out I had a 7-year-old daughter named Lily. How her mother, Chloe, abandoned her at a school near my house because she was dying of cancer. I thought I had the whole story. I thought Chloe was just a scared, proud woman who made a terrible decision. But then I found the file on her laptop, the one labeled, "If Jake doesn't show up." And I want to tell you what was in that file. But first, I need to tell you about the 3 days that happened before I opened it. Because those 3 days made me realize that I didn't know Chloe at all. And they made me question whether Lily's arrival in my life was an accident or something much, much darker. After Chloe passed, I tried to settle into a routine with Lily. I told myself that the past didn't matter. What mattered was that little girl sleeping in the purple room down the hall. The first few days were surprisingly normal. I made pancakes, burnt them, made more. Lily laughed at me. She has this laugh that sounds like wind chimes, soft and bright. I remember thinking, I could get used to this. After Chloe passed, I tried to settle into a routine with Lily. I told myself that the past didn't matter. What mattered was that little girl sleeping in the purple room down the hall. The first few days were surprisingly normal. I made pancakes, burnt them, made more. Lily laughed at me. She has this laugh that sounds like wind chimes, soft and bright. I remember thinking, I could get used to this. We went to the park. We bought groceries. She asked me if we could get a dog. I said maybe, but every night, after she fell asleep, I sat at my kitchen table with Chloe's laptop. I wasn't looking for anything specific. I just needed to understand. Why 7 years of silence? Why a school near my house? Why didn't she just call me? The laptop was old. The screen had a crack in the corner. It took forever to load. But on the third night, I found a folder buried in the documents. It wasn't hidden with a password. It was just there, like she wanted me to find it. The folder was labeled Lily School Records. I clicked it. Inside were scan after scan of enrollment forms, medical records, birth certificates, and that's when I saw it. Lily's birth certificate listed me as the father. That much I knew, but the date on the birth certificate was wrong. Chloe and I broke up in June. That's a fact. I remember because I left for college right after 4th of July. Lily's birth certificate said she was born in March. Do the math. 9 months before March is June, meaning Chloe was already pregnant when we broke up, meaning she knew. She knew she was carrying my child, and she still let me walk out the door without saying a word. I stared at that screen for I don't know how long. My hand was shaking. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to throw the laptop against the wall. But then I saw something else. At the bottom of the birth certificate, there was a note, handwritten, in Chloe's messy cursive. It said, I will tell him someday, when I'm brave enough. I closed the laptop. I walked to Lily's room. She was asleep, her stuffed bunny tucked under her arm. I stood in the doorway for a long time. I thought, okay, she was scared. She was young. I can forgive that. But then I opened the laptop again the next night, and I found the folder I wasn't supposed to see. .it was buried deeper. I had to click through 5 different folders to find it. Personal, important, letters, unsent, if Jake doesn't show up. I almost didn't click it. Part of me knew that whatever was inside would change everything. But I clicked, and inside was a single document. A letter, dated 2 weeks before she dropped Lily off at the school. I'm going to read you part of it, because I've memorized every word. She wrote, Jake, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And it means you didn't come for Lily at the school, which means my plan failed. I need you to know something. I didn't leave Lily at that school hoping you would come. I left her there knowing you would, because I've been watching you for years. I know you're a good man. I know you wouldn't abandon a child. But if you're reading this file, it means you didn't come. And that means I was wrong about you. So here is my backup plan. I stopped reading. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. A backup plan. What kind of person creates a backup plan for abandoning their child? I kept reading. Chloe's backup plan was simple and terrifying. She wrote that if I didn't show up at the school within 24 hours, a sealed envelope would be delivered to my house. Inside that envelope were 3 things. A DNA test proving Lily was my daughter, a letter to my employer explaining the situation, and a note to the local news station. She was going to go public. She was going to tell the world that I abandoned my own daughter at a school. She wrote, if you won't be her father by choice, Jake, you'll be her father by shame. I felt like I had been punched in the chest. This wasn't a dying mother's desperate plea. This was a manipulation, a trap. Chloe didn't leave Lily at that school because she trusted me. She left Lily at that school because she calculated me. She knew I would show up. She knew I would take Lily in, because that's who I am. But here's the part that really broke me. She wrote, I know you'll read this eventually, Jake, and I know you'll be angry. But ask yourself this. Would you have taken Lily if I had just called you? If I had just told you the truth from the beginning? And I realized I didn't know the answer. I sat at that kitchen table until the sun came up. I thought about calling a lawyer. I thought about calling social services. I thought about packing Lily's things and driving her to Chloe's mother's house. Because how could I raise a child that was given to me as part of a manipulation? How could I look at Lily every day and not see her mother's scheme? But then Lily woke up. She walked into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. Her hair was a mess. She had a line from her pillowcase on her cheek. She looked at me and said, Dad, why are you crying? I didn't even realize I had been crying. She climbed onto my lap. She put her tiny hand on my face. And she said, it's okay. Mommy cried a lot too. I know how to fix it. She went to the fridge, got a juice box, and handed it to me. She said, juice makes everything better. I held that juice box for 10 minutes. I didn't drink it. I just held it. And I realized something. Lily wasn't her mother. Lily was just a little girl who had lost everything. Her mom, her home, her entire world. And if I sent her away, I would be proving Chloe right. That I only take responsibility when I'm forced it out. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't call social services. I called a therapist. I started seeing someone twice a week to untangle all of this. The anger, the betrayal, the guilt. And here's what I learned. Chloe was sick, not just physically. She was terrified, and terrified people do terrible things. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it helped me understand it. She didn't manipulate me because she was evil. She manipulated me because she was desperate. She was dying, and she couldn't bear the thought of Lily growing up in foster care. So she did the only thing her broken brain could think of. She forced my hand. And you know what? It worked. I love Lily. I really love her. Not because I have to, not because the world is watching, but because she's funny and smart, and she sings off-key in the shower, and she thinks Mr. Wiggles is real. Chloe gave me a gift wrapped in thorns, and it took me months to see past the thorns. But here's the final twist, the one I still haven't fully processed. A few weeks ago, I was cleaning out the guest room closet. I found an old box of Chloe's that I had missed. Inside was a journal, not the letters, a journal from when she was first diagnosed. In it, she wrote about her options. She wrote about telling me the truth. She wrote about giving Lily to her parents. And then she wrote something that made me put the journal down and walk outside for air. She wrote, "I know Jake will hate me for this, but I'd rather have him hate me and love her than have him never know her at all, because she deserves a father who chooses her every day. And if I have to trick him into that choice, so be it. I'll be the villain in his story, as long as she gets a happy ending." I sat on my porch for an hour. Chloe knew exactly what she was doing. She knew I would find that file. She knew I would be furious. She knew I would feel trapped. But she also knew that eventually I would understand, because she wasn't trying to punish me. She was trying to save her daughter, and she was willing to destroy her own memory to do it. Oh, where does that leave me? I still get angry sometimes. I still have nights where I stare at the ceiling and think about the 7 years I lost. But then I hear Lily laughing in the other room, or she comes running down the hallway to show me a drawing, or she falls asleep on my shoulder during a movie, and the anger fades, because Chloe was right about one thing. Lily deserves a father who chooses her every day. And I do. I choose her, not because of a file, not because of a threat, not because of manipulation, but because she's mine. And maybe that was Chloe's real plan all along, to make me fight through the anger and the confusion and come out the other side as Lily's dad. Not out of obligation, out of love. But here's the thing that still bothers me. When I was going through Chloe's laptop one last time before I wiped it clean, I found one more folder. It was buried deeper than the others, hidden inside a system file, and it was labeled, "The Truth About Lily." I thought I already knew the truth, but when I opened that folder, I realized I didn't know anything at all. Screen fades to black. Text appears, "Subscribe for part 3. Hit that like button if you think Chloe was wrong for what she did. And comment down below, would you have been able to forgive her? I'll see you in the next one.